Ever had a moment that blurs the line between comfort and confusion? Join Sophia as she navigates an unexpected late-night encounter that challenges everything she thought she knew. What unfolds is a delicate dance of emotions and boundaries. Stay with us to uncover the twists and turns of this captivating tale. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more intriguing stories. That evening, I rested with my eyes shut, hovering in that delicate state between consciousness and dreams. In the silence, as a soft wind moved the drapes, I noticed the door swing open without a noise. Without raising my head, I whispered softly, "Richard." I was in a dreamlike state, yet the voice that responded was not his. In a quiet, somewhat shaky tone, Jason spoke, "I'm unable to sleep." I opened my eyes and saw the silhouette of a person against the door. The moonlight softly illuminated his shoulder, casting a faint light on his face. I was speechless. His presence in my room at this late hour surprised me. "Jason, is everything all right?" I asked gently, my voice filled with surprise. "I'm not sure," he replied softly as he entered. "I just can't seem to fall asleep." He came closer while I stayed seated on the bed, adjusting the blanket around me. "Can I help you?" "Would you like some water?" He shook his head gently. "I hope I'm not bothering you, but I'd like to talk if you're willing." There was a hint of nervousness in his voice, a heaviness that filled the room. "Please, I need some space," I said, though my voice carried a touch of doubt. "At this hour, is something troubling you?" He gave a slight lift of his shoulders. For a brief second, his eyes met mine before looking away. At times, it feels like there are expectations from others, the university, my father, and everyone else. But with you, I feel a sense of calm. His words resonated within me, causing a gentle shift as I placed my hand on the edge of the bed. "Please have a seat," I suggested softly. "Are you ready, narrator? This tale has a special quality. We begin a journey where emotions intertwine and boundaries softly blur. If this is your first experience with such a confession, we invite you to stay with us. Subscribe and activate notifications. This narrative might just present an unexpected twist." He paused before sitting beside me. He sat quietly for a moment, his hands resting on his knees, a hint of youthful nervousness in his manner. He began to speak to me. "My dad loves me, I know," he said, his gaze drifting away. "Sometimes I feel a distance, as though I don't quite belong in his world." I was surprised by Jason's words. He had always been cheerful, a bit mischievous, a young man who seemed carefree. I hadn't noticed the underlying unease. It's completely normal. "I mentioned you're growing and changing. These feelings will fade. You know your dad, and you know me." Jason took a brief moment before speaking. His voice was barely above a whisper. "And if I ever seem different to you," his words lingered softly, echoing in the quiet room. A strange weight settled in my chest. I found it hard to meet his gaze, but my heart raced, yet I lacked the courage to understand why. "Jason," I said gently, "please come to my room at this hour and speak like this. Perhaps it's best to take some time for yourself." "What if I don't want to be alone?" John responded without hesitation. His voice carried a challenge, yet it also held a hint of desperation. In that moment, I realized it was time to gather my thoughts. "Look," I said with gentle firmness, "in moments like these, it's important to remember what is truly right. As your stepmother, I find it important to have this conversation." My words slipped out as he turned to glance at me. The look in his eyes was a delicate mix of openness and nervousness. "Emma," he said, and the way he spoke my name sent a shiver down my spine. I never meant to feel that this was wrong, yet when I think of you, I find it hard to understand how it could be right. I should have stepped in at that point. I could have gently interrupted, suggesting he leave for a moment. However, I refrained as that gaze compelled me to face my own emotions too. In the dim light of the room, Jason's face was clear, his expression caught between the innocence of a child and the complexities of an adult man. "May I rest with you for a while?" Virginia inquired softly. For a brief moment, I was taken aback. I preferred not to consider the implications of his words. I should have seen him simply as the uncertain young man in need of support. I took a deep breath and focused on staying calm. "Certainly," I said softly. "If that brings you comfort, you can stay here." He sat on the opposite end of the couch. I gently adjusted the blanket around me, seeking a sense of peace. I felt a slight unease within me. Yet, I was his stepmother. He was just a young man of 19. I reached for my phone to distract myself. A message arrived from Richard. "I won't be home this evening. I'll be at the office all night." Reading that message only increased my unease. If Richard were here, I would have a clearer perspective on how this situation might appear. Now, I needed to focus on understanding Jason's sensitivity and responding appropriately. "Is everything all right with you?" Dingier inquired, glancing at him. "Being here with you brings me comfort," he said gently. His voice carried a depth I hadn't expected. We remained quiet for a moment. He continued to express the same idea to me. He's just a boy. I want to support him in navigating the situation. However, I sensed a shift and instinctively reacted. Jason approached me gently. He gently placed his arm over me, brushing my back with a light touch. My heart started to race, yet I remained calm. "Chasson, da," I murmured softly. "What are you doing?" "I'm feeling a bit cold," he remarked softly. However, there was a nuance in his tone that suggested it wasn't just about being cold. I inhaled slowly. I needed to handle this carefully. He was quite young, likely navigating a mix of emotions and uncertainties. This must be innocent. Wouldn't you agree? I attempted to reassure myself of that as I lay there. Still, the intimacy I experienced left me feeling a bit unsettled within. My heart raced and my thoughts felt scattered. I kept reminding myself that it was time to let go. Yet I found myself unable to take that step. "Sophia Dana," he spoke softly, his voice resonating within me like a gentle wave. I found it hard to ignore. Jason rested his hand on my shoulder, seeking reassurance. I gently closed my eyes, contemplating my next move. A quiet turmoil stirred within me. "This is just a simple connection, isn't it, Drainer?" I found myself repeatedly trying to convince my own thoughts. As his breathing steadied, I noticed that he had fallen asleep, yet for me, rest seemed impossible. Rest seemed. My heart raced gently, a quiet rhythm that seemed to fill the space around me. I felt disappointed in myself. What is it about this that affects me so deeply? What is causing my tension? However, his youthful awareness and energy created a sense of unease within me. This intimacy, it must be pure. Eventually, as I wandered through my tangled thoughts, fatigue gently enveloped me. And in a gentle turn of events, I found myself drifting off to sleep as well. As the sunlight filtered into the room, I gently opened my eyes. A gentle pressure rested on my arm. Jason remained asleep, his serene expression reflecting a certain naivety. But it was then that I realized that what troubled me was not just the innocence. It was the intricate layers that lay beneath. Gently, I shifted my arm and rose from the bed. As I stood, I glanced at him once more. His tall frame, broad shoulders, and defined features caught my attention, highlighting the transformation he had undergone since our first meeting. I quietly reflected. He seemed so mature, far more than I had anticipated. I felt a momentary discomfort, realizing the need to address boundaries clearly. I gently shook it, slipping on a light jacket over my shirt before quietly leaving the room. As I descended the stairs, I inhaled deeply. He behaves as though it's just another ordinary morning, I reminded myself. Seeking a gentle diversion, I made my way to the kitchen. Making breakfast felt like a wonderful way to occupy my hands and thoughts. Yet, my mind continually drifted to Jason upstairs. His relaxed expression and presence lingered in my thoughts, creating a sense of unease. I found myself reiterating my points multiple times. It was just a moment that was misunderstood. Everything is perfectly fine. This is completely innocent, and I won't make a fuss about it. I stepped into the kitchen and started to make breakfast. As I listened to the gentle hum of the coffee maker, my thoughts lingered on the image of Jason upstairs. I needed to collect my thoughts. "Everything is fine. Just stay relaxed," I murmured. At that moment, Richard's voice seemed to take precedence over mine. "Good morning, sweetheart," he said, standing at the door with a weary expression. For a moment I paused, uncertain of my next move. I gently managed a smile. "Good morning," I responded. Richard came closer and gently kissed my cheek. His closeness only heightened my unease. "The aroma is delightful. Is breakfast nearly prepared?" Dina inquired with her usual cheerfulness. "Is it almost ready?" I spoke, my voice carrying an unexpected edge. As Richard exited the kitchen, he called out softly behind him. "I think I'll rest in the living room for a bit. I'm feeling quite tired." He walked into the living room and a wave of unease washed over me. What if I go up and find Jason in the room? How should I express myself? What is the best way to convey this? As Richard made his way to the living room, I exhaled softly. For the time being, I decided against going up. I arranged the breakfast table with care, yet my hands trembled slightly. I took great care to ensure that Richard remained unaware of anything amiss. As I glanced into the living room, I noticed him reclining on the sofa, drifting off to sleep almost immediately. His steady breathing offered a gentle sense of comfort. For the moment, I felt a sense of security. Yet the unease within me lingered, not fully settling. This situation cannot continue as it is. I feel the need to take action. As I set the cup of coffee on the table, my thoughts began to swirl gently. Jason remained awake and Richard was present. I felt the need to gently steer the situation in a more favorable direction. But how is that possible? Later that morning, as Richard remained in slumber, Jason made his way into the kitchen. We were sitting at the breakfast table and the easy smile on his face left me feeling a bit uneasy. I held the cup of coffee in my hands, aiming to engage in his conversation with ease. "You look lovely today, Sophia," he remarked quietly. His confident tone seemed a bit advanced for someone his age. I found my gaze drifting toward him without meaning to. It seemed he had more to express, yet he chose to refrain. "Thank you, Jason," I responded, aiming to maintain a steady and composed tone. A moment of quiet passed. He gently poked the eggs on his plate with the fork and then remarked, "I hope your day isn't too hectic. If you require assistance with anything, feel free to reach out." His expression was earnest, yet the quality of his voice left me feeling uneasy. "There are many other priorities for you to consider at school," I mentioned. His words, while courteous, had created a sense of unease within me. A gentle sense of relief washed over me as he picked up his bag and moved toward the door. Yet, a peculiar sensation lingered in my chest. This boy seems to be experiencing something unique, doesn't he? Once Jason had departed, Richard stirred from his slumber around midday. He enjoyed a calm breakfast before preparing for his day at work. After he departed, a sense of tranquility settled over the house. That evening, we gathered around the dinner table, engaging in light conversation as though all was well. I went along with it, acting as if it was simply an ordinary day. However, as night descended, that peculiar unease returned. Richard received a phone call, the sound of the ringing gently breaking the quiet of the moment. His close friend Tom experienced an accident and is currently in the hospital. Richard chose to depart right away. As he prepared, he leaned in and kissed me reassuringly, saying, "Don't worry, honey. I'll return as quickly as possible." I walked him to the door, watched him depart, and gently secured the door after his exit. The sensation of loneliness I experienced was unexpectedly weighty. It felt like there were others around me, yet I was enveloped in a profound sense of solitude. As I entered the room, I paused at the threshold. I glanced at the lock. Is it best to close it? What if Jason approached the situation with a gentle touch? What if he returns here? I gently shook my head, seeking to ease the situation. "That's sufficient, Sophia. He's merely a young lad." "What makes you consider that perspective?" Despite my efforts to push it away, The thought lingered in my mind. I settled into bed, smoothing the delicate sheet over myself, seeking a sense of comfort. I shut my eyes, yet the unease lingered on. The night enveloped everything in a gentle hush. Yet, at times that very stillness can evoke a sense of unease. Jason came to mind, approaching me with a focused expression as I became aware of my proximity. A shiver coursed through me. The uncertainty in my thoughts deepened, reaching a level where I momentarily lost sight of my next steps. What's happening in that moment? Jason leaned in slightly, maintaining his gaze on me. I sensed the unease and uncertainty mirrored in my own. I paused for a moment, my voice quivering as I spoke. Jason, please pause for a moment. My voice quivered just a bit, yet the apprehension was clear. I am your stepmother. What makes you consider something like that? Jason paused briefly, his eyes widening in astonishment. His advance halted suddenly. Yet the quiet and stillness between us grew more profound. This seems unlikely to occur. It simply couldn't be done. My thoughts were becoming disordered. I glanced at him and realized that my expression, a blend of uncertainty and apprehension, was likely revealing my discomfort. What could have led me to consider this? I felt a bit adrift. Jason exhaled softly, a hint of tremor in his breath. His gaze remained steady on me. He took a step back, creating a gentle space between us. However, the atmosphere was so thick that it seemed to echo softly around the room. I have something to share, Jason. I spoke, my voice wavering and uncertain. As I observed you in slumber that morning, a thought dawned on me. You've grown beyond childhood. It seems you are. You carry yourself with such maturity. My words lingered, yet my emotions were too restrained to remain unspoken for much longer. Emotion welled up within me, yet I struggled to articulate my thoughts. As I gazed at him, his eyes remained on me as well. Yet, I found myself uncertain about how to proceed. It's more than just your age, your entire essence, your physical form. You've grown beyond childhood. I pressed on, attempting to articulate my muddled thoughts. I once viewed you as a young child, and I allowed you to rest in my bed without a second thought. Reflecting on it now, I see the flaws in that choice. Reflecting on it, I recognize the potential risks we faced together. Your secret is safe with me. I spoke with a measured tone. You have a remarkable presence, and I can imagine you attract quite a bit of interest at the university. In return for my discretion, you will stay with your aunt for a period of time. It seems you might be considering other options. Are you following me? Jason took a brief pause, allowing the moment to settle before gently bowing his head. His eyes reflected a sense of regret. Please don't tell Dad, he said, his voice quivering slightly. I sincerely apologize. I will be staying with my aunt, I assure you. His expression conveyed a blend of feelings, unease, reflection, and perhaps a hint of void. Yet there was an unspoken quality, an essence he found difficult to articulate. Emma reflected quietly. What if she had experienced a connection with Jason? What if she had acted? She inhaled slowly. Her thoughts lingered quietly. Indeed, her vibrancy and enthusiasm left me a bit perplexed. Despite her best efforts to maintain composure, there was always the possibility of a fleeting moment of vulnerability or emotional turmoil. Having transformed everything, however, I believe I managed it effectively. What I did is of little consequence. I made the appropriate choice. For a brief moment, she reflected inwardly as though she were gently revisiting the events in her mind. All is well indeed. It was an unusual experience and presented its difficulties. Yet, it has come to a close. Jason moved in with his aunt and all is well. She felt uncertain. Yet, at this moment, I believe everything is manageable. Emma took a brief moment, exhaling softly. Everything is perfectly fine, she said, her voice calm and reassuring. Naturally, she remained unaware of what lay ahead. Gradually, the atmosphere started to settle. Initially, Jason would visit the house occasionally, but his behavior gradually became more relaxed and natural. There was a calmness, free from any unsettling words or actions that had occurred previously. All things appeared to be settling back into their rightful order. With the arrival of school holidays, Jason's return offered a sense of ease. Throughout that period, he had truly transformed. He displayed a sense of calmness and maturity in his actions. It seemed we had distanced ourselves from those charged moments. Jason's return seemed to present a quiet challenge for Emma. During those 5 months, she had persuaded herself that everything should appear ordinary. Upon Jason's return, a shift was evident. He acted with greater maturity and composure. There were no longer any unusual approaches or awkward behaviours. Emma experienced a gentle wave of relief upon noticing that Jason had returned to his usual demeanour. Emma reflected that all was as it should be once more. Jason has gained clarity, recognises the boundaries, and has come to terms with the circumstances. The previous unease has entirely dissipated. Emma paused for a moment, inhaling deeply. Perhaps this was the most suitable resolution, she considered. Time handled it gracefully. Now was simply a typical dynamic between a stepmother and her stepson. For a time, I believed that all was well. My husband Richard was away on a business trip for a week, and I found myself feeling quite at ease. At last, a moment of solitude, a serene environment to relax and release the burdens of stress that have accumulated. Jason's behaviour has shown a noticeable increase in maturity over the past few months. It truly eased my mind. Although it was difficult to acknowledge, our experiences ultimately led us to a more positive outcome. I believed we were secure, yet that evening caught me off guard. Once Richard departed, the peacefulness of the home enveloped me in an unexpected sense of serenity. I drifted off gradually in my bed. Yet, there was an unusual sensation lingering. I was unsure of what it was. One night, while I was soundly asleep, I was gently stirred awake by a noise. The door gently opened with a soft creak, followed by the sound of footsteps approaching. A figure was approaching my room. I opened my eyes and noticed a figure shifting gently in the room. For a brief instant, I sensed a pause in my heartbeat. Jason was present in my room. I quietly shut the door after he left. A chill of unease washed over me. What brings us to this moment? What's the reason for this? I sensed that something was amiss. Even if I couldn't quite grasp it, I felt a sense of powerlessness, yet I chose to remain quiet. I needed to approach this with care. "Jason," I said, my voice trembling slightly, though I was trying my best to sound composed. "What brings you here?" His gaze settled on me, and his composed tone only heightened my unease. "Indeed, Sophia," he remarked, as though this were entirely ordinary. "I simply wish to have a conversation and enjoy your company." I felt a surge of unease within me. What was his intention? What prompted him to want to change everything so abruptly? The depth in his gaze unsettled me. He exuded confidence and determination, as if poised to transcend any boundaries. He moved a bit nearer, his eyes gently meeting mine. In that moment, every part of me, my heart, pushed back against him. Yet there was an undeniable closeness forming. I hesitated, feeling an urge to retreat, yet I found myself instinctively stepping back. "Jason, please stop," I urged, my voice betraying a hint of unease. "I would appreciate a little more time." "Thank you." In my mind, I was in turmoil, yet my voice emerged steady and composed. "Tomorrow night, a new perspective will unfold. I will join you, just not at this moment." I struggled to maintain my composure as I attempted to leave the room, my gaze lingering on him. My feelings were a mix of uncertainty and hesitation, even pulling away when something in the situation seemed to draw me in. If you're curious about what unfolds next and would like to enjoy more stories like this, consider subscribing and turning on notifications to stay updated on new episodes. I truly appreciate your comments and likes. They inspire me to continue my writing journey.